TPR.
Welcome to episode 13. This is the May episode. Something happened in April, so we weren't able to record. That something happened. Something that happened was that we were busy and we didn't plan accordingly. So thank you very much, Zirak, for joining us all the way from Lahore. I think where you were in the previous one as well?
Correct.
Sanji. So how are you, Zirak? As usual. We've been talking for
doing well, and I will correct you in that it's not that we did not plan accordingly, it's that we planned but failed. We failed to live by that plan. Planning तो हमने बहुत की थी.
Is that a bigger failure or lesser? Question for another day.
I think at least intention तो थी ना plan करने की, नीयत तो थी.
Yeah, that's as good as it gets. There's a new playlist, this new Hamnawa playlist. Please link below, link everywhere. Listen to that first, and then you can come to this. We have a whole bunch of songs selected by Zirak. How do you feel about this month's playlist? I think I thought I should start asking you about this also.
Big bulk of songs. I think like Ramzan से पहले के बहुत सारे गाने आ रहे थे. Like Ramzan में तो कम हो गए थे, but then post Ramzan there's a big host of releases, many of which again have also not made it, but this one's like 40 songs. So like pretty big playlist. मैं करता ही हूँ कि साल के end में ना I take the songs that I like, have good memories of in each of these playlists and compile them into like a yearly best of. So this year I think it'll be hard.
Yeah, it'll be a challenge. Yeah, it's going to be 400 songs.
There will be. I mean, it's also like they're not bad songs. Is what I'm kind of coming to terms with. Like I go back to them and I try to whittle down, but it feels quite unfair because I think if I look at us talking and these playlists as a way of like cataloging like all kind of notable music coming out, I think all of these songs deserve to make some sort of cut.
So congratulations to everyone who made it. No monetary benefit for you, but maybe one day. You have 3 songs that you selected, and then we also added a couple more things. So we can start with JANI, Fasana by JANI. First song we're going to discuss.
So JANI is, I think, one of my favorite rappers from this Stunners universe because he is totally unlike anybody else in the Stunners universe. He is more Hassan Rahim, right? He's the pop rapper of this world. Like he sings in melody, basically. Like he's a rapper in that like he doesn't hit many pitches. Like ऐसा नहीं वो मतलब वो बहुत like, but he's not intending to, right? Which is fine. Like Hassan Rahim.
Are you saying pitches or bitches?
No, pitches. As in like frequencies.
What?
Edit this part out. Enunciation. I will not be failed by enunciation.
The main lead into the episode.
This is a music podcast. Please let it remain that way. मैंने कहा क्यों इतना परेशान हो रहा है मैंने रैप के बारे में इतनी बुरी बात नहीं की.
JANI accused of not hitting enough. A weird test, but चलो ठीक है. He's not vocally he's stable is what we're saying.
It's not the intention, right? Like the intention is not to go up and down frequencies a bunch. But there's still melody to it. Like you can hum it. You can't hum like Anjum and Yunus as much as easily. So which is why I find it interesting. The themes tend to be similar. So again, this one, so JANI, as you may remember, is of May Iqbal fame.
Oh my God, yeah. Every song I listen to now of him, I'm like, is this going to be another May Iqbal situation? Yeah.
I mean, honestly, the first line is just as dark.
Yeah.
But it becomes better after that. And I think it's interesting because I don't think JANI has a lot of songs with Jokhay before. Like वो उसके super duper के साथ होते हैं. Jokhay is the senior producer in this cabal. So that he is producing JANI, I think is like a good sign. And Jokhay is a very rock producer. I don't know if you've gotten this sense. Like the guitars are coming in strong. So the combination I find kind of interesting. And I think it's an easy way if I need to give people a gateway into Pakistani hip hop that is not Maanu and Hassan Rahim, but into this like Karachi hip hop. JANI is the person I put forward. What do you think?
Yeah, one thing, I have a very simplistic opinion on why I like Johnny. I find that because I think he's not a native Urdu speaker, he has an accent in Urdu, which I really appreciate. Because that to me adds like diversity of flavor in this sort of inherent way, which is apart from like, subject matter or flow or
Does he speak
production.
another language as his first language?
I think I think so, because Urdu
Okay.
is not Urdu speaking, because that's the the only thing we're qualified on opining on. His Urdu is, I mean, it could be Sindhi, Baloch. I'm not sure. No offense. Hi, this is Ali from the edit. Sorry for the interruption. I'm not sure about what I'm saying here, if Johnny is Baloch or Sindhi, where his accent is coming from. So let's head over quickly to Kazi's podcast, where he interviewed him, I think, a year or two ago.
सुल्तान असल में बलोच है, तो उसके स्लैंग्स अलग हैं, मेरे स्लैंग्स अलग हैं. आप वो बलोच हैं, आप मैं महाजन हूँ.
Okay, so everything I'm saying about Johnny and his heritage is incorrect. Spoiler, discussion, disclaimer, all of that. What I'm saying is incorrect about where he's from, what his roots are, apparently, based off this interview clip that I've put in here. But we can just go with, me appreciating his specific accent, dialect, delivery, etc., etc. No offense. Sorry for the incorrect information. Moving on. But
मतलब हमारी उर्दू से तो फर्क है, हमें तो नजर आ रहा है, like it could be,
but he has a distinct accent, which I
right. We may be wrong in whether or not he speaks another language as the first language, but it's certainly a different color, a different texture. 100%. और ये वैसे ही है जैसे लोगों को लाहौर कराची उर्दू में नजर आता है, फर्क.
Which now begs an interesting question. Going down the path of Karachi is so multicultural. You might know this more than me. Where in Lahore music, this is Karachi music, now we have all these different people. Na? There's Urdu speaking. Everyone's in Urdu, but they have their accents because they hail from perhaps different backgrounds. Is that a thing that you would see as much in Lahore, or is that Lahore ki identity more
I don't think
homogenous?
you see that as much in Lahore generally, like even as a kind of societal thing.
Right.
आपको नहीं नजर आता लाहौर में इतना.
Right.
मतलब आपको नजर आता है पंजाबी के different लहजे नजर आते हैं.
Yes, that's sort of where I'm going.
हाँ. So पंजाबी के different लहजे नजर आते हैं आपको लाहौर में, just like depending on where people are from.
Right.
But उसमें भी I think there's a kind of Lahori Punjabi, but you'll see different different words being used. लाहौर में जो उर्दू स्पीकिंग लोग भी हैं वो भी like my family is Urdu speaking, so हमारे केस में like the Punjabi Urdu delineation is very clearly demarcated. कौन सा लफ्ज पंजाबी से आया, कौन सा उर्दू से आया, और वो ये basically generationally खत्म होता जा रहा है. Like the younger people are, the more likely they are to have inculcated Punjabi words, and the more likely they are to be corrected by older people.
In my Dadyal is the same situation. Like dad and all brothers, very particular. Everyone speaks super fluent Punjabi, but there is a line. And all the kids went to like a school in Lahore, so they're like just Lahori kids, and unke liye this does not matter as much.
So, मतलब हमारा like Moze versus Jarab debate is
Moze versus
very serious.
Is one of them not from Urdu?
So Jarab I think is Punjabi. अच्छा मेरा खैर Moze is what we call it.
Moze, yeah. Okay. Now you also say Moze, and I'm saying Moze.
हाँ, so Moze जो है ना, in my mind Moze is not
is wrong.
Moze से बेहतर कि Jarab ही क्या. This is one of my biggest fights with Natasha.
Yeah, because when I hear Moze, I'm like, no, that's like that sound is not for this word.
अच्छा तो बात करो, एक से 6 तक गिनती करो.
1 2 3 4 5 6.
Che. So you say che, which is
not che.
Most people say che.
Che. Yeah, who would say che? I'm trying to. We'll come back to this in the next episode. But
I think what you're pointing out is interesting. एक लड़का है, उसका नाम है S.A. Chaudhary.
Okay.
वो उसके S.A. Chaudhary के नाम से I think वर्क करता है. वो मुल्तान से है. तो मुझे उसकी उर्दू भी बहुत डिफरेंट लगी थी. उसका लहजा बिल्कुल डिफरेंट लगा था. वो पंजाबी में नहीं उर्दू में कर रहा था. So for me, it's actually quite interesting when you see a different Urdu lehja even, उसमें लफ्ज ना भी different हो, because I think it captures a slightly different side. क्योंकि आपको PTP वाली sanitization नहीं ना हो रही. Like everybody that from 20 years ago, everybody that made it to the airwaves was pronouncing things like a particular way. Now it's not.
हमारा RP. जो English में, I don't know if you guys know. Anyway, Royal Watch.
But now it's not the case. Which I find quite refreshing. Like obviously there is some level of, you can say, okay, where does linguistic correctness take over just kind of diversity. Like you can have that argument कि भाई लफ्ज़ ही गलत बोल रहे हैं आप, you know. When Atif Aslam did his Coke Studio thing, then Amjad Sabri was like हाँ तलफ़्फ़ुज़ में थोड़ी गलतियाँ हैं. There was a big kind of debate. ठीक है,
this is when he sang Billie Jean.
ताजदार हरम. I see we are doing this episode purely for the clips.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
So I quite like it. I think what you're pointing out makes a lot of sense.
It's interesting, right?
It's refreshing.
And I think this is also like if I wonder if Zahoor doesn't sing in Urdu, but perhaps he might have to Zahoor explore singing in Urdu. This is the let's make Urdu more interesting.
हमारे लिए एक
the worst tendencies of Urdu speaking people. हाँ जी नवाब थे हम एक ज़माने में. अच्छा जी, next song, very interesting. Beqadra by Nehaal Naseem. Nehaal Naseem, who I'd never heard of. So this is also a great exercise for me because I come to these Hamnawa playlists and you're tracking these through your Skynet sort of system, and so I find all these new people. I thought that she's a new person, like completely new. This is her first song ever. अगर मैंने नहीं सुना तो obviously कोई career नहीं था इनका, but turns out she's quite famous.
Huge.
Yeah, hundreds of thousands, I think, like 300,000.
Close to 700, I thought.
700? Pata nahi. Hundreds of thousands of monthly listens. And I think also because previously she has done a drama OST song, as per her Spotify description, jo ki maine jaake dekhi. But this song, I was... अब इसमें फिर उर्दू लफ्ज़ the singing लहजा in this I felt leaned quite Western pop. अगर कोई Ariana Grande type loves डाल दे तो that's not exactly accurate, but वो that sort of modern vibe, which I'm sure is not what she did in the drama OST because वो वहाँ fit.
It's interesting that you point out drama OSTs because drama OSTs get heard a ton.
Yeah. Super.
Like that is मतलब in terms of kind of big ticket musical items in Pakistan, drama OSTs are as far up there as all of these music shows. However, in the music community, I think they are looked down upon.
Yeah.
As a kind of place. Because वो थोड़ा basic है.
Yeah.
I don't share this opinion. Like I think they're musically they can't be super edgy.
Sure, right? Like that's not what
they can't be different. So I guess there's a reason why the artistic community looks at them as a kind of boring art form.
Mainstream,
but they are heard so much.
Yeah.
Then they reach so many people that I feel like looking at them as kind of a low tier art form is perhaps unnecessary and also a lost opportunity.
हाँ उसमें वो फिर वही class differences, elitism, इस तरह की बातें fit होने लगती है ना. And if they were like super edgy and cutting edge, that's not what the show is. The show is supposed to looking for the biggest audience, so वो फिर वो product market fit issue बन जाएगा उसमें.
No, it does make sense.
Yeah,
it is one of the few places where I think the gender balance is really kind of 50-50, right? Because you tend to have like a male lead and a female lead both in the show as well as in the audio. So I think a lot of female singers will often, like, you'll see them on OSTs before you might see them elsewhere, which I think is a good thing. Like I don't see a problem with that. So Nehaal Naseem is huge, but flew through my radar also, right? Like I didn't come across these songs before. This one I think is an independent song that's not connected to OST. It's interesting that you point out that it sounds Western because I think the melody is very Eastern.
Right. Yes. And in between there is some like Eastern classical sort of vibes bhi hain in the song.
लेकिन कुछ लफ्ज हैं जो थोड़े अंग्रेजी
निकलते हैं. The enunciation of sometimes is the enunciation is this is a very Urdu based episode.
Which I don't know kind of her demographic, but I imagine that speaks to her general
or whatever she's interested in.
Right. मतलब कि वो जो गाने whatever she's listening to or whatever, like however whatever's influenced her socially. Is what kind of comes through. Melodically, I find it interesting because this is so unlike, this is very more drama OST and unlike any of these indie pop stars. And this is close to these Bilal Saeed, Mumina Mustahsan, Tahir Abbas melodies. Have you heard of this guy called Tahir Abbas?
I've seen the name.
Yeah. You need to search the name, and again you go to it and you're like, how is this person this huge?
Right.
If you're coming from an indie first standpoint, you're like, yeah, मेरे को पता नहीं था इस बंदे का. Bilal Said is also similar, right? Like you are either listening to every song he's making, or he is totally outside of it.
Yeah. Or you've only
there's
heard,
not a lot of crossover.
What is that Bilal Said song? 12 Saal. That's the song. That's the Bilal Said song that has crossed all boundaries. But Varna, he has like lots of other songs. But Beqadra, I don't know if we mentioned the name of the song, but Beqadra is the name of the song by Nehaal Naseem.
So I think Beqadra fits in that mold of songs, which I find really interesting. Like if you were to go, sadak pe aapka bhi chal raha hai, and you just need to you walk into a shop and you expect like some desi style song to be playing, I can see the song being played.
Right. It has broad appeal.
It has really broad appeal, which I find really interesting. But it's done in a kind of modernish way.
Exactly.
Like आमतौर पे like broad appeal वाले गाने होते हैं ना, वो आते हैं but with some kind of artistic compromises.
Right.
A good example of this is if you follow Sanam Marvi's output on Spotify.
No,
I love Sanam Marvi's music.
Sure.
But every song they put out, uski production बिल्कुल ही कुछ हल्की broken होती है.
Achha.
Like the mix is off, but it's very kind of amateurly done. And for a singer of that stature, who we have seen produced really effectively and really well, then when you see this happening, you're like, okay, like somebody is not doing something right. So this feels good to me because you can't say that about this song. Like the melody is very broad appeal, but nothing else is compromised to achieve that. And so I think I enjoy pieces where you can show a kind of broad appeal to a local audience without compromising, on the basics somewhere else. Like, as you know, this is my argument in life.
Yeah.
My software mein bhi yehi argument karta hu aur idhar bhi. So for me, these are interesting pieces quite a bit. Coke Studio 3 में हुआ था कि like there was a kind of joke कि जब आरिफ लौहर आया था ना when they sang Jugni, that there was a internal debate in the house band कि ये इतना देसी गाना cool नहीं हो सकता.
Oh.
So this debate is not that old.
A legend, huh?
No, I think it's documented.
Oh no,
somewhere. I should find it. I should find it somewhere. But
alleged until we provide evidence. Don't sue us.
So I think it's given that this debate is not that old and recurs so often, I find these sorts of pieces kind of very notable and worth kind of discussing.
Yeah. Next song, Kuch Nahi Hua by Eva B. I am very unfamiliar with Eva B's music. Like I know that she's a rapper and she has songs and I've heard her other, but not somebody I have followed. I'm not sure, but what my image was of Eva B, this song is outside that image in the sense that it seems like a very serious, deep zindagi ke masle, relationship, perhaps issues, that sort of anguish type vibes wala gana. So I don't know how true that is, but it's a great song. Like very mature Eva B vibe, where previously I thought, oh, she's just like a young, fun person, enjoying her career in music.
Interestingly, I have the exact opposite take on this song. But I don't think that we are actually that far off.
Sure.
So the background for Eva B is that she is, I think, from Liari,
perhaps,
but Karachi-based Balochi rapper. Her emergence, like if you listen to her talk, it's very much like, मतलब ये लड़कियां ये काम नहीं करती.
Yes.
लड़के ही हैं सारे. ठीक है, और वो लड़कों के मसलों के बारे में बात करते रहते हैं. And so she had these like other things that she wanted to talk about. And so one of the kind of deals that she made with her family in terms of how she was going to rap was that she was going to not show her real identity.
Right.
And so that became the kind of whole persona. And so usually I don't think demographics are the most interesting part of discussing an artist. In this case, because they are such a central part of understanding where she is coming from, I feel it is worth pointing out. So most of her music comes from that background. Right, which is that you are talking about societal issues, specifically as they relate to women, and then as delivered in rap format, like they have the format and the genre lends itself to communicating social difficulties in a very particular way. And so the presence of Eva B is interesting because it is a new voice in an existing space, which you wouldn't otherwise have heard.
Right.
It's very difficult to name a ton of hip hop artists that are female in Pakistan.
Yeah.
बहुत चंद है. And Eva B is probably the biggest of the lot.
And also, एक तो she a female rapper, and also from like a non-majority community. in terms of media representation, which it's not in Urdu, it's not in Punjabi, her
Punjabi,
background.
yeah.
So even I'd say in more mainstreamish music, languages like Pashto are more represented than Balochi historically has been. Perhaps. Yeah. So
मतलब Balochi we only know because of rap, right?
Yes.
या Coke Studio पे जो 2-3 आ चुके हैं.
Sure, huh.
Like Cafe, Walk the Chana लाए थे, like like these sorts of like 3 or 4 pieces here and there. हाँ, Kana Yari, sorry is what I mean. But वो लेकिन LUG वही rap ही आ गया ना. So like Balochi rap is the earliest mainstream appearance of
modern mainstream
Balochi in Pakistani pop, as far as I can look at it. And so so Eva B's presence is important for that reason. Then obviously she like grew really fast, made it a Coke, made it a Marvel. So now she is an established star. With this song, I actually found the reason I had the opposite opinion to you is because I thought by the time it gets to the chorus, it's kind of almost like a playful sounding chorus. It's not very harsh. It's not it's not combative in a sense, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's actually kind of playful in a way that you can think of it as being almost a romantic song, as you alluded.
Yeah, I was confused because I was like, in my mind, there is some family context of Eva B that I once picked from some interview that she was giving. With regards to how you were mentioning, difficulties in women participating, perhaps from her area or household or whatever in music, and obviously Pakistan mein toh, this is like a general issue for most women everywhere. So that I was like, is this like about just like a friend or a family member? And then the chorus sort of goes into like, oh no, perhaps this is like a romantic relationship issue. But yeah, it was going back and forth in my mind.
And the more I read the lyrics, I think it's one of those things that could be designed to be ambiguous, or in a sense where you could read it to be about a person, but is in fact about something larger. Like it is written to one person, but in fact it is prompting at issues that are much larger, like more societal in nature, which makes sense because that is her general list of topics.
Right.
And if you take the like list of topics that are addressed by hip hop, specifically by like Eva B, then you can see those same discussions being addressed to one person. And whether that one person is like kind of a romantic subject or just a kind of family subject or a kind of, friend, it's almost, it's fine. Irrelevant. It could be either. And it's irrelevant. And also the ambiguity is kind of useful. Useful, interesting. And this ambiguity is so present in our culture of music. Like वो तो कवालियां सारी like they're designed to be ambiguous between आप किसके बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, So I think it's very smart, and I think now in this age, if you are going to write political commentaries, being not super direct about them is actually the smarter way to go. Because who would want to do that, right? Unless you knew you were protected. Especially as a woman in this country.
Especially as a Baloch woman.
बिल्कुल. So like आप क्यों करेंगे ये? So I think it could be either, and I don't want to assume intention behind what she is doing, because that's not really our place to do.
And also it's interesting, it's this song just by being what it is sending us down all these like what could it be kind of pathways.
And that usually is the quality of expresses the quality of the thing where you can kind of assume meaning to it or put meaning onto something and still find it to be aesthetically whole. So yeah, I'm really excited about like Eva B putting out news. Every time she puts out a song, it is basically like that it is worth at least knowing what it is. Even if it is not your.
And after this song, I think I'll also certainly make the effort of looking into more Eva B music. Shae, maybe I've got the wrong idea of her being fun, and तुम कह रहे हो कि नहीं all her songs are about मसले मसाइल.
I think मतलब ये भी हो सकता है कि जो उसका काना यारी में जो था ना bit, it was actually very fun.
Yeah, it was.
And funner than the other two people in a way.
So was pretty sad.
So I think maybe like that also kind of gave that impression. If you listen to just her solo stuff, it tends to be pretty. Fun is not the term I would have used to describe the tone of them.
Acha. And then the last bit we have is Left Right. Very late entry into the playlist, very recent release. I wasn't even sure that this was the name of the song. I've been following the social media teasers with like the old-fashioned pictures, but I didn't know अच्छा क्या नाम क्या है गाने का. So this is what it is. Lots of people in the song, and it is interesting. Like the vibe of the song is not old-fashioned. Like Ali Sethi is doing his Ali Sethi thing. I might have missed. I don't recall what Shae was doing in the song, but I remember Ali Sethi. I remember Maanu, and Abdullah Siddiqui is not singing.
He sings, I think.
He is singing.
He does sing, and Shae does a lot of the parts that Ali does as well.
Acha. So because I heard it late at work,
and Ali and Shae's bits are the hooks.
Right.
And Maanu, I think you and me are predisposed to enjoying Maanu.
Yeah.
तो हमें इसलिए Maanu वाली चीजें याद रह जाती.
दोस्त बन जाए Maanu.
It's interesting because this is basically the Pasuri crew plus Maanu. But
Maanu.
Maanu I think is part of the overall group of people that contributed to Coke and a lot of other these like big releases because he writes a lot of the music now.
Yes.
And so Maanu I also don't think is completely outside of that group. Also, right?
No.
Manu, I think Manu is renowned as a songwriter, as well as like a melody writer, but definitely as a songwriter. So that he is in there does not feel out of place. मतलब ये नहीं लगता कि Pasuri +1, which I think is ऐसा नहीं. मुझे तो ऐसे लगा भी नहीं because I kind of know where his place in the industry is, but I don't think if you look at the song just without knowing all of that context that it reads as out of place.
Yeah, but what I was thinking because of my org chart mind was that this is the Lahori, like a big part of the Lahori collective that has now sort of established itself. Jisme there's all these hip hop boys, Maanu hai, Rozio hai, these guys. Jaise Karachi mein there's Hasan Raheem. Hasan Raheem also has strong links with these people, but yeah, it's there are people from Karachi who are part of this and they have some relationship, but like Young Stunners is separate from this. Right, the YSU is separate from this, but Abdullah Siddiqui, Talal Qureshi is also in Lahore. Acha, but Talal Qureshi is also like on both sides. Like he has people in Karachi, I think, as well. But
Talal is producing most of his work these days is with Lahore people, I think. But Talal is like a kind of older. Like, I don't think Talal is. Talal has bases elsewhere in Pakistan also. So he has these like existing collaborations.
He's from the third wave of Pakistani music as. Throwback, agar aap dekhein. Not in this current fourth wave. So he's older than all these guys. But this is like a thoda ye sare Lahore wale people have all gotten together and they have made the song because they're all in the same thing. मेरे दिमाग में ये एक बहुत forethought ये थी. But
बनाना चाहिए हमने कभी map. Pakistani artist wala.
Yes, modern Pakistani industry org chart. But what about the song? You've heard it more than I have.
I really like it. I think the hook is very singable. Right, it's very. If you listen to Ali Sethi, it makes sense. I don't think it is a second Pasuri, which I mean is a compliment. Like it's not designed to be okay. We gana dobara ga dete hain. It's not a sequel, but it's very much from that same lineage.
Yeah. Do you think that's like a potential threat on the horizon that now the Pasuri is such a huge, enormous, massive hit, people are just going to be chasing that like second Pasuri? Which was my immediate fear at the start of this song.
Yeah, true with every hit, right?
Right.
Like, good artists will have a hit and then try to burn it down as soon as possible.
Yeah.
That is the mark of artists that are good. And I think the bad artists will try to keep making the same song over and over again.
Yeah.
And so the question is, the artist in this situation can make a choice to do so. Right? Yeah. Luckily, I think what these guys have done is not to follow that same mold. They've taken the same collaborators, they've taken some of the same elements that worked and built something new, but they've not tried to create that same song. Which I think is useful because when we talked about Ali Sethi performing live, like Pasuri was the main showpiece.
Yeah.
Right? The last third or
quarter
of his performance is Pasuri being sung over and over. And you can tell that people are there to listen to that song.
Right.
And so he has this entire body of work that he has to like present before he leads to this. And so I think for his benefit, you hope that eventually there is 3 or 4, 5, 6 or 7 of these that he can play around with. Like we don't want it to be one gargantuan hit song and then a bunch of other really good things that people don't know.
Yeah.
So for me, that the idea that they are doing something different is really useful.
Yeah. No, I think it's good, and I'll go back and check out the song a bit more. Because I listened to it in a rush at work. It seemed very interesting, but sahi se opinion nahi ban saka. But yeah, how are you for time? 1 minute to go. Okay, we'll sneak in quickly. The Pazuri live performance. I saw Ali Sethi at Coachella, not in live, but TV pe. And yeah, I don't know, man. It wasn't great. Maybe it's an off.
Yeah, acha, there's so much to say here. Acha,
Yeah.
pehle to aa jana
Did you watch it?
Diljit aur I watched.
Okay.
Pehle to aa jaye Diljit aur Ali Sethi pe. Like
Right.
everybody's like, acha, Diljit ye kar raha hai, Ali Sethi ye kar raha hai. I think aside the fact that they are both desi,
Yeah.
and at this event, there is not really a comparison.
No,
एक बंदा भंगड़ा गा रहा है, एक बंदा गजलें गा रहा है.
हाँ,
आप कहते हैं उसको कि भाई अच्छा भाई, how do these compare? I find that a little bit short-sighted. The other thing I find short-sighted is good for these guys to be performing at Coachella. Like it's a big thing at in their careers, so good for them. But also like good for Coachella to finally wake up to the rest of the world also.
Yeah.
So like in a way, this is not a one-sided affair.
Yeah.
Like that these hits are so huge and that Coachella has to recognize them is also a way of
there must have been so many
situation.
Diljit fans who had no interest in Coachella before this.
So I think like just we were represented, and how were we represented? Was that representation good? Diljit ne to aise represent kiya, to Ali Sethi ne kaise represent kiya? That can't be the end goal.
Right.
The good thing is that the door has been opened. But if we are looking to each of these artists on their own as representing entire cultures and figuring out who did the representation best, then our goals are too small.
Yeah.
We need to be a little bit bigger. So for me, that entire debate is kind of problematic.
Sure.
You can look at the specific performance. So I think like the one thing that people need to understand is that this is basically, from what I understand, like the clips that I have seen, this feels to me like Ali Sethi's US tour delivered at Coachella.
Right. Of course.
Is my understanding. मतलब वही पीछे backing band same था. He changes the kind of one guest performer, but other than that, the backing performer is the same. और फिर वो सारा present हो रहा है. So I think once you look at it that way, you can think of it as a little different of a performance as well, right? It's not like a Coachella specific. मैंने कुछ न कुछ चीज बनाई है. It is a kind of tour he was doing.
Logistically, it would also make sense to keep that same crew that is already touring in America.
Yeah. Why not? And I think as a kind of show, it is that same show being delivered here. So for me, I think there was not that much kind of adaptation. And so that you can have an argument about, which is if you know of Ali Sethi's US show.
The US show that you went to, was that more like a sit-down vibe?
No. It was like basically कि वो छोटे कमरों में होता था. So it was probably like 100-150 people all standing.
Okay.
Standing room, और उसमें फिर like you do ghazals ये वो और आखिर में बसूड़ी. Basically, it was this exact thing without the screen. So maybe a little bit smaller, but standing room.
Okay.
So for me, like I think the question you can ask is, does it make sense for him to present that same act here, or should he have done something different? And I think looking at Diljit's act, which was on a bigger stage, full bhangra, piche background, the backing dancers, people I think are looking at it and saying, why is it not that grand?
Right. Maybe. My thing was much more nitpicky in that I only saw Pasuri because that's the only thing that randomly came on my feed, and I did not like how it was performed on a performance level. Ki matlab, it's a good song. I'm sure he's done it better other places, but yahan it was not good. I didn't. This is just my opinion. No endorsements and any resemblance to persons living or dead. But the Shae Gill analog in the song, didn't like her. Ali Sethi ki performance also. Ali Sethi was at times I felt like off key, which is just a thing. I don't know how true that is, but. Yeah, the crowd was into it because Pasuri is a famous song. But I think वो थोड़ी hype ज़्यादा हो गई थी. No, I'm not. Why am I doing this?
I think so. The thing that's hard in this act is that basically once he starts performing, Pasuri becomes the thing that everybody wants to hear.
Yeah.
और वो करते रहते हैं और वो कहते रहते हैं बस हमने Pasuri सुनना है. So he's basically leading up to it. It's like that's how it's going to end, and so basically he's kind of leading up to it. जा रहा है होगा नहीं होगा. तो वो उसमें बस I think it kind of builds up to something too big.
Because Pasuri is not like a hype song, right? It's like it doesn't have like the
in a way,
insane vibe wala gana ke sab pagal ho rahe hain, chlange maar rahe hain, ye wo. which is also sort of I think wo yoga ke is probably the end of the set and the energy are sort of built up to that insane expectation.
तो एक वो है, and then I think he has to then perform it kind of larger than life
because it's a bigger thing.
It's and I think when you're there, it makes sense.
Yeah. Obviously.
Yeah, and so I'm not qualified to discuss the kind of, are the right notes being hit, or is it like an artifact of how the thing is being recorded? Like these guys are professionals. Like, so I don't quite know. Like it's but ho bhi sakta hai, like maybe variations happen, but it's rare that people of this caliber actively go out and kind of miss their notes wholesale.
The only reason I'm bringing this up so much is because Ali City is like such a pro, right? So I was like, ye kaise ho gaya? It doesn't make sense. And obviously, I've never let lack of,
So, I that's not really the theme of this podcast, is it? Look, that's not the theme of two men on podcast in general. Expertise ke basis pe
in their 30s.
वो तो बिल्कुल वाकई we are living meme.
वरना तो
शुक्र है कोई नहीं, लेकिन अपने मुल्क में तो हम भी वही है ना, like
गोरे enough.
वही हाल है हमारा. गोरे enough.
Urdu-speaking, the Gora analog. But yeah, anyway, the song Left Right, I think that's a good thing to... There was another song, very interesting person who I will investigate further. Maybe we'll bring up, but Slow Spin, I think my biggest takeaway was that they have exactly your name, which I found to be like, I was like, man, so maybe I've known one other Zirak in my life, and now I found another Zirak Ahmed, and it is a woman. Maybe, perhaps.
It's funny because every now and then people are like, do you make music? And I'm like, no, different person. And it became problematic when I started writing about music, and they're like, this is now deeply confusing. y'all need to figure it out. No.
Yeah. But great. I'm assuming you have to run. Thank you very much for watching, listening. Playlist below if you haven't heard it before. Go listen to it now. And we'll be back at some point in the foreseeable future. Thank you, Zirak. Okay.